Act 1. The incident. Her father trusted her teacher. 4-year-old Nada Jane trusted her with her life. One afternoon, she was found floating face down in a bathtub. On January 23, 2023, in a quiet home in Glen Vista, a suburb of Johannesburg, South Africa, a 4-year-old girl named Nada Jane Challita was discovered lifeless in her family's bathtub. The water was still running, her tiny body face down, unresponsive. But this wasn't an accident, not according to what investigators would find. Bruises shaped like fingers, signs of recent sexual trauma, and a chilling final text from the woman who had been trusted to care for her. "You broke my heart, I'm going to burn yours." That woman was Lee Hughes, 23 years old, a former preschool teacher, and the girlfriend of Nada's father. And on that day, she became a murderer. Act 2. Timeline of discovery. Nada was born in Johannesburg in 2018 to her parents Elie Challita and Amy Johnson. She was sweet, spirited, full of curiosity. She loved fishing, gardening, and picking strawberries with her mom. But by 2021, her parents had separated. Amy, dealing with depression and job loss, moved far away to Cape Town, leaving Nada in the care of her father. That's when Amber entered their lives. She was a teacher at Nada's preschool, young, friendly, and eager to help. When she offered to babysit after school, Elie thought she was being kind. But within months, they were in a relationship. And by March 2022, she had quit her job and moved into Eli's home full-time, staying with Nada while he worked. It seemed perfect. But behind closed doors, Amber's possessiveness was growing. She sent flirty, obsessive notes home with Nada. She tracked Eli's WhatsApp chats. She accused him of cheating, and she hated how much attention he gave to his daughter. On January 23rd, Elie left early in the morning for a 3.5-hour trip to explore a job opportunity. That same day, Amber began texting him furiously, accusing him of betrayal, crying, spiraling. As Elie tried to calm her, she became more erratic. "You broke my heart, I'm going to burn yours." 4:35 p.m. He panicked, called her, texted her, begged her to answer. One message said, "Don't hurt the baby. Kill me instead. The baby is innocent." Amber didn't reply. She only sent one final message. "I'm sorry, I love you." Act 3. The victim and their life. Nada Jane Challita was just 4 years old, but her personality filled rooms. Her mother said she had a soft spot for animals, a love for strawberry picking, and a joyful laugh. She was tender-hearted, playful, and trusting. The one constant in her life was her deep bond with both her parents, even if they were separated. When her mother left for Cape Town, Nada stayed behind with Elie, unaware that the adult meant to care for her. Amber was slowly becoming dangerous, but Nada was too young to see the red flags. She loved Amber, called her teacher, followed her around, trusted her completely, and when she saw Amber crying that day, Nada, being only a child, tried to comfort her. Amber later texted Elie, "Nada is wiping my tears with the same sheet we slept on last night." That's the kind of heart Nada had, and it was the last act of love she would ever give. Act 4. Crime scene breakdown. It was nearing evening on January 23, 2023, when Elie Challita's friend arrived at the house. Elie had begged him to check on Amber and his daughter after Amber's disturbing texts and refusal to answer calls. But when the friend got to the house, the gate was locked. He called out, knocked, no answer. Amber was inside, but she didn't open the door. Elie texted her one final plea. "My friend is outside. Let him in." She ignored it. So the friend forced the gate open, broke into the house, and what he found stopped him cold. Amber was sitting on the living room floor, soaking wet, her wrist bleeding, her pants missing. When he asked her where Nada was, she silently pointed to the bathroom. He rushed in, and there, in a bathtub with the water still running, he found 4-year-old Nada Jane, floating face down, lifeless. The friend pulled her out, ran outside, and called emergency services. When paramedics arrived, there was still a faint pulse, but it was slipping away. They rushed her to Netcare Malbarton Hospital, where doctors tried everything. It was too late. Her cause of death, asphyxiation by drowning. But that wasn't all. There were finger-shaped bruises on her face. There were injuries to her front and back private areas. Clear evidence of recent sexual assault. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, brutal, and intimate. Act 5. Suspicion and Lies. When police arrived, Amber was already being taken into psychiatric care. She claimed it had all been a terrible accident, that she had only left Nada alone in the tub to stop her own bleeding after tripping on the dog and cutting her wrist on glass. She said she hadn't wanted to scare the girl with the sight of her injury, so she stayed away. She insisted she tried to pull Nada from the tub, but that the girl was too heavy. She claimed she climbed into the tub, tried to revive her with cold water, then placed her on a step. None of it made sense. If she had gotten into the tub, where was the blood? There was no blood in the water, no sign that Amber had been in the bathroom at all. Worse, when Eli's friend found Nada, she was still floating face down, untouched. Amber had also called her father, Howard Hughes, at 5:10 p.m. that day. She said the word accident, begged for help, but then 10 minutes later, she texted Elie again, asking why he was doing this to her. She never mentioned Nada's condition, not once. That alone destroyed her story. Police also began to unravel a long history of violence and instability between Amber and Elie. She had cloned his WhatsApp messages. She smashed things in the house and bled on the walls during fights. Once he had to wrestle a meat slicer out of her hands to stop her from self-harming. She had threatened him in the past, saying, "I'll show you how I'm going to kill you and your f***ing child." He never believed she meant it. He was wrong. Act 6. The Turning Point. Amber Lee Hughes was arrested that same night. She was charged with murder and sexual assault. She was denied bail, and what followed was a painfully slow crawl to justice. In 2024, her trial was postponed. In April 2025, postponed again. This time because she hadn't received dental treatment and was supposedly too medicated to speak. It was only in May 2025, 2 years after Nada's death, that Amber finally went on trial. In court, she wept, claimed she loved Nada, insisted it was a tragedy, that she had bathed her often, that it was just a mistake. But when prosecutors pressed her, "Did you drown the child?" she said, "No, never." "Did you sexually assault her?" Her voice cracked. "No, I never hurt Nada." She even tried to deflect blame onto the family gardener, claiming he had been in the house that day. But Elie swore Lloyd hadn't been there, and no evidence placed him at the scene. Amber said the police had ignored her version, that they never analyzed her phone or checked certain items. Her father stood by her, telling the press, "My daughter was a better parent to Nada than either of her biological parents." That comment, after all that happened, triggered an outburst in court. Elie yelled, "He who laughs last, laughs best." Amy, the child's mother, screamed, "Your days are numbered, girl." The trial was nearing its end, but the damage was already done. Act 7. Psychology and Motive. What drives someone to kill a child they claim to love? To the outside world, Amber Lee Hughes was a soft-spoken preschool teacher, a woman who doted on a child, wrote cute notes filled with hearts, and took care of a little girl while her father was away. But behind the curtain, she was volatile, obsessive, and deeply insecure. Psychologists would call it pathological jealousy, the kind that blurs reality and turns love into possession. For Amber, Nada wasn't just Eli's daughter. She was a rival, a reminder that Eli's attention, time, and love were shared. Amber didn't just want Elie, she wanted his world, without the parts she couldn't control. And when she couldn't control him, when she saw messages to other women, when he left without kissing her goodbye, she unraveled. Her text said it all. "You broke my heart. I'm going to burn yours." This wasn't a breakdown. It was a deliberate act of emotional arson. And in her rage, she chose the one thing that would wound Elie forever. She didn't stab him. She didn't scream. She drowned a 4-year-old child, the softest, kindest part of his life, and then tried to say she slipped and fell. And afterward, she sat on the floor, soaking wet, bleeding, pantless, waiting to be found like the victim in a scene she'd scripted for herself, as if she was the one who needed saving. But the one person who couldn't be saved was Nada. Act 8. Aftermath and Emotional Echo. In the months after Nada's death, the courtroom turned into a battlefield of grief and blame. Amber's trial became a stage where the adults around her, her father, her attorneys, fought not for justice, but for denial. Her father told the press Amber was the real parent, that she'd loved Nada more than her own mother and father did. He laughed in court, and that laugh sent Amy, Nada's mother, into a fury. "Count your days," she screamed. "Your days are numbered, girl." For Elie and Amy, it was unbearable. They'd lost their daughter in a way no parent should, not to illness, not to accident, but to someone they let into their home. And in their shared grief, the two who had once fallen apart found their way back together. They now live under the same roof again, trying to rebuild some semblance of life after the unthinkable. They go to therapy. They cling to memories. The way Nada loved to garden, how she picked strawberries and asked for roses, how she'd catch fish just to let them go again. Those small joys are now all that remain of a life stolen by someone who should have protected her. And Amber, she awaits a final verdict. Her fate will be decided, but Nada's will never change. This wasn't just a crime, it was betrayal in its most innocent form. A father's trust destroyed, a child's love manipulated, and a tiny life extinguished in the very place she was told she was safe. She wasn't just failed by Amber, she was failed by silence, by hesitation, by the hope that love could fix someone already broken. Let this not be forgotten. What would you have done differently? And how do we stop trusting monsters just because they smile?